I don't think they should have to.
At least they don't have the conspiracy theory that the government is doing it to mind control us.
No, my mum thinks it was not a bat that it came from. She says that the like Center for Disease Control that's in Wuhan is quite close to where the outbreak supposedly was, and she reckons it comes from a fish. I don't remember why, but she does.
Okay.
Oh, the plot thickens.
The plot thickens. I don't know. I have no fucking idea. I'm just like, we're all fucked.
Yeah.
And that's bad. And that's as much information as I need.
Everyone's been on the internet too long. The theories are sprouting. Everyone's too bored. Nature is out of balance.
But it's getting back in balance because the human race is inside where they should be. And now all the nature is returning. Mum and Dad had some extra nature today because they forgot to turn on their fence. So they woke up to their garden being full of cows.
Excellent.
So that was nice. So then Mum had to chase them out of the garden. But they're such pets, they took absolutely no notice of it.
Cows have no concept of social distancing.
They do not.
No.
They do what they please.
Hope they didn't eat all her lovely garden.
Oh, yeah. It's fine. It's cool.
It's fine.
Wouldn't be the first time. We're not really attached to our garden because something comes in and eats it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting used to the idea with all the shit that Barnaby is now eating in my house. We should introduce ourselves.
Yes.
Who are you?
I am Tay, and I am the cut phone line when you're trying to call for help.
Oh, I like it. Very 90s. I'm into it.
I am Lacey, and I am that mysterious cryptic message that was left behind.
Oh. You're the Tam and Shud case.
Yes!
Yes. And I'm Laura, and I am your Xenomorph dream daddy that's rolling through your head every day. I can't stop thinking about him. It's fucked up.
Someone make a dating sim.
Oh, I really want someone to make Dream Daddy, but with a Xenomorph skin.
Please. Mod that.
I'm so upset. I had a dream about it. A weird romantic situation last night where a Xenomorph was wooing me, and I was into it, and I can't stop thinking about it.
And you were trying to look really cute for the Xenomorph.
I really wanted to wear my birthday party dress for him. It was fucking wild. It's like a little kid's dress too. Like it was like a little pink tutu thing, and I was just an adult. Like, this is appropriate.
Sounds like something from a Rob Zombie film.
Oh, yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Like Sherry Moon would be wearing like a doll's dress.
Mm-hmm. I would like Sherry Moon to play me in my horror movie version of my life, please.
I can see that. That's a very good casting. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Sherry Moon. She's so cute.
Me too.
So, my lovely friend Luke is an artist and an all-round brilliant, blessed person. And he had some extra time on his hands and asked if he wanted, if he could draw a little thing for us. And I was like, hell yeah. Mm-hmm. And
it's so good.
He drew a little witch doing a podcast.
It's fucking awesome.
It's so good.
It's on our gram. Good. It's on his gram. Yeah, it's the rule
it's
about
so
it.
good.
Yes, you can find him on Facebook at Luke Harrop Illustrations if you are so inclined. Yes. Check him out. Keep that creative support flowing for all of us in ISO at the moment.
Yeah, it's amazing. It made me feel very happy knowing there are people out there who are putting all this weird time to fun creative use.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's my not.
No, I'm just getting past it barely with assignments. But I made the art my phone background, so every time I unlock my phone, I see it, and it makes me very happy. It's quite nice.
And think of us.
Yeah.
Angelic voices.
Yeah.
I'm never going to let that die. We have angelic voices. Someone said it about us. It's going to stay. We have a new theme this week. It is dun 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 mass disappearances.
Ta-da!
Because
Ta-da!
we have all disappeared, really.
We have.
Ooh.
It's like
Feels
28
that way
days later when you go out onto the street.
It is, yeah. That's exactly what it's like.
It is really eerie. You know? There is a feeling in the air. at the
Part
moment.
of me, like the part of me that's always wanted an apocalypse to happen, because I, for some reason, think that I'm tough enough to get through it. I'm definitely not. I will die, like, instantly. I will be the first wave. Is really into it. Is like, baby, we have to go and get supplies. And he's like, you mean we need more toilet paper? I'm like, no, supplies!
Guns,
Need to
baby.
prep.
Guns.
Yeah. He's like, okay, we can take the electric fly swatter if you want. I'm like, yes, we
Ooh.
must take it. So yeah, that's how exciting my life is right now, but it's pretty awful. My poor grandparents are going crazy.
Everyone's going a little stir crazy.
Yeah, so we thought we'd incorporate it into it. We did also, it also was sort of sparked from a suggestion that we got from one of our listeners, Chevy, that we'll be doing something a little bit more tailored to what she asked for in the coming weeks.
Yes, when we can be together as one.
Yes.
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 Please let it only be weeks.
Oh god, I know.
Alrighty, so, ladies,
Yes.
have we heard of the Sodder family?
Yes!
But you did this one!
Yeah, I had a little bit of indecisiveness. As a natural Libra, last night I couldn't decide what to do. Very close to deadline, as always. And I was reading about a bunch of different mass disappearances, but this one stuck in my head because it's so strange. So we're going with this one. Alrighty, so for those of you at home that don't know, in 1895, George Sodder, born Giorgio Soddu, and his wife Jenny immigrated from Sardinia to West Virginia. So Sardinia's in Italy, West Virginia's in America. The town of Fayetteville had a large population of Italian immigrants, and the couple settled there in a 2-story timber house. George started a trucking company, hauling coal and soil, and the couple had their first child, and then they proceeded to have 9 more over the next 20 years.
Oh, God.
They're flourishing, beautiful, prosperous life. They were liked within their community, and according to Wiki, quote, one of the most respected families in the town of Fayetteville. So they had a level of notoriety within the community. But George wasn't in everyone's good books. He was pretty vocal about his dislike for Mussolini, the Prime Minister of Italy at the time. Notoriously fascist, by the way, for those playing at home. So he didn't fuck with Mussolini, and this didn't gel with some of the members of the Italian community, unfortunately. So that was all between, like, 1895 and, I want to say, like, 1943? Because then, the last Sodder child, Sylvia, was born. So for some context on how large the age gap is, the second oldest son, Joe, was serving in World War II at the time of Sylvia being born.
Whoa.
And the eldest son was 23 and he was at home.
Shit, okay.
Yes.
Wow, that's a big gap.
Big fam.
Yeah.
So we have Sylvia at the time of all of the supposed happenings she was 2, Betty was 5, Jenny was 8, Lewis was 9, Martha was 12, Maurice was 14, George Jr. was 16, Marion was 17, Joe was away at war, and John was 23.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, don't worry about trying to remember all these names.
Good. Thank you.
There's only a couple of key ones. So Sylvia, Betty, and Lewis are like the key kind of names that I will touch on again. But they all do matter.
Okay.
But those are the ones of note because they will be mentioned again. In 1943, Sylvia was born. 1944, Mussolini was executed. George is probably thrilled,
Yeah.
but his neighbours maybe not so much. So the following year, October 1945, a life insurance salesman visited the house after being told, "Nah, mate," because George was like, I don't want what you're selling. The salesman said to George, "Your house is going to go up in smoke. Your children will be destroyed because of the dirty remarks you have made about Mussolini."
Whoa. Okay.
So 0 to 100 real fucking quick.
What?
And then 2 months later, December 24th, a fire sparked inside the Sodder home, apparently due to faulty wiring. Merry Christmas, kids.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, hey.
Yeah. So here's how it all went down. So Marion, who's the eldest daughter, comes home from work Christmas Eve with some gifts for her younger sisters, Martha, Jenny, and Betty. They're all thrilled. Get fucked everyone else, apparently. No one else got gifts.
No, they're her favourite siblings.
Yeah. So the girls asked to stay up late and they want to play. They're like, Mum, we just got the jackpot. Please let us stay up. And Mum's like, oh, yeah, sure. But Maurice and Louis have to go and tend the animals and do all the chores while you do that. Make sure you'll turn off the lights when you're done. I'm going to bed. So she takes baby Sylvia upstairs and goes to bed. And this all happens around 10 p.m.
Okay.
And then a little after midnight, the phone rings. So Mum goes downstairs to the office to answer it. And there is a woman on the other end who's laughing and asking for somebody that doesn't live there. And there's like the sound of more laughter and clinking glasses in the background. And Mum's like, nah, mate, wrong number. So she hangs up and notices that the lights are still on and the curtains aren't drawn. So not good. She turns off the lights, she draws the curtains, she goes back to bed. Around 1 a.m., something loud hits the roof and rolls down the corrugated tin. And this wakes up Mum again. No more noises, she goes back to sleep. Thinks whatever, shit happens. I would do the same. There's always banging around on my roof. I have a very large family of fat possums on mine.
Aww.
Yeah, I was thinking about this a while ago with, like this morning. Well, this morning was this afternoon for me. My sleep cycle has been really fucked by this shit. But, I have a, recycling bin that's filled with tins, and, there was a big crash, and it woke me up, and I started to go back asleep, and then I was like, nothing should be able to make that happen. What the fuck? Freaked out, thought maybe something was in my house, or the rabbit had gotten out and done something ridiculous and was in pain. So I got up and looked, and it had just fallen over because I put it on top of something else because I'm dumb. But I was like, I was going to go back to sleep. What if there was someone in my fucking house? The only reason I did it is because I thought about my rabbit.
Oh, that's
Otherwise,
sweet.
I'd be like, if it kills me, I'm asleep. I won't know.
Yeah. Well, it's very relatable that Jenny, who's the mum, is she has all these kids. She's got a fucking 2-year-old, and every time she gets waken up, she's like, fuck off, and she goes straight back to sleep. That's a mood.
100%, yeah.
She's exhausted. Let the woman sleep. But yeah, the bang wakes her up, and it rolls, something rolls down the tin roof, so she's like, whatever, I'm just gonna go back to sleep. And then half an hour later, the house is filled with smoke. So Jenny gets up to investigate. She's like, what the fuck? And the office is ablaze. It's concentrated around the phone and the fuse box, but it's up. So she runs back to wake George, and this is where she hits the fan. So they've got so many kids. They're running back and forth trying to wake everyone up. They get Marion, they get Sylvia, they get John, they get George Jr. outside. So Sylvia's the youngest, and she's got the 2 more older dudes, and then they've got Marion is the oldest daughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
They scream upstairs for their kids. There's no response because there was one of the bedrooms was in the attic. The hallway is an inferno at this point, and the house burns, and the Christmas tree is still lit as their lives fall apart, basically. It's Christmas Eve. The lights...
Oh my God.
Yeah. So phone's toast. Marion runs to the neighbor's house to find a phone that works. George runs to grab his ladder to climb into the attic bedroom, but it isn't where he left it. It's normally leaning against the side of the house. So he's like, whatever, fuck. He runs to grab one of his trucks, because he has 2 trucks, to drive it over to the side of the house so he can climb up on that. Both of them won't start. The fire brigade doesn't arrive on the scene until 8 a.m., 7.5 hours after the blaze started. That's
fucking wild. Isn't
it was
this Sorry, where is this? I don't know why, but for some reason, obviously, I can't remember.
It's in West Virginia.
So is it a small town?
So Fayetteville is it's a pretty solid town. The fact they have such a large collection of there's a big immigrant community and stuff. But this being said, the firehouse was 2.5 miles away from the house.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm thinking Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a whole rigmarole around the fact that the fire brigade didn't get there for ages. One one theory I read was like, oh, it's wartime. There's not a lot of people available at the brigade. Apparently one of the dudes that was at the fire brigade at the time couldn't drive. So he couldn't actually drive the truck. He had to wait till someone got there that could drive. And also, like, apparently it was just like at a time where, like, if no one's in the brigade ready to go, you have to, like, contact them at their home.
Yep.
And
Still
like, and then
today.
Like a phone
Yeah.
tree, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they have to get there and stuff. Like, I live, like, I can see there's a fire brigade. If I stand on my driveway, I can see it. Like, it's like 20, 30 meters down the road. So I hear that siren all the time. But it is like that kind of thing. Like, it's like the siren goes off and it's like, well, I have to wait for everyone to get here now because it's very small. Yeah,
Okay.
so, but still, 7.5 hours is a suspiciously large amount of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the house burned to ash, and according to authorities, the children did too. So I call bullshit. I did
Yeah.
some research. To cremate a body, you must reach temperatures of over 760 degrees Celsius, which is double in Fahrenheit, about 1400 degrees. House fires, or property fires, as they're called in the insurance biz, burn at roughly 550 to 600 degrees Celsius, or 1100 Fahrenheit. So it's still hot as hell, but it's not hot enough to burn bone.
Not like to the point that it isn't any there.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
even in like the cremation things, you still get big pieces of bone that have to be
Yeah.
crushed down to be fitted into the urn.
Yeah. So when people perish in house fires, remains are left behind. Bones, dental records, like jewelry, something. You cannot incinerate a body in open conditions like that. So cremation chambers are controlled spaces that are able to reach necessary temperatures, and they have the tools to, again, like, do the cremation. A house fire is exposed to the elements and doesn't get that hot, hence bullshit.
This is a little bit off topic, but you've just sort of sparked that brainworm.
Yes.
I would really love for us to
Set things on
one
fire.
of us to
I'm down.
youthful dalliances. Stop. No, I was just thinking, and this is very close to your story that you did last year, Lacey. I would love to look at this with spontaneous human combustion in mind, because and Lacey, you probably could tell me because you're a freak for this.
Yes.
Isn't there often only like some body parts left and they're pristine, but there's nothing else?
Like the feet.
Yeah, it's
Or is it there's still skeleton left?
It's because when the body catches fire, whether it's like an internal or external accelerant or whatever it is, the fat in the body acts like a wick, and so that'll burn quite nicely. But you see, in the hands and the feet, there's not a lot of fat. But the reason the feet are always left is because the hands are usually in the lap or trying to pat their fire, so they get burnt. So the feet left, that's a normal thing in that.
But
kind
is there
of
usually
fire.
skeletonized parts left behind?
Absolutely,
or are they...
absolutely.
Yeah, okay, cool. Right. So for some reason in my head, I just keep thinking of, I forget his name, but the photo of the old gentleman's
Feet and
remains.
slippers.
Yeah, and I can't ever remember seeing, but there's a hole in the ground because he was on like a second story or something. So I'm like, maybe he just fell through, and that's why I can't remember seeing the rest of him.
Potentially.
Grizzly. Sorry.
It's okay. No, mate, we love a little bit of side story if it's grizzly. That's fine. Yeah, but anyway, so the coroner's office still issued death certificates for the 5 children on December 30th. Cause of death, fire due to faulty wiring. Grief-stricken, George bulldozes the remains of the house and fills it with soil to plant a memorial garden. The fire marshal's like, nah, dude, we need to investigate. But it's too late.
Oh no.
Yeah. So George and Jenny could smell the bullshit as well. They were on top of it. It just didn't add up. They believed that their children were very much alive. They'd been kidnapped. The fire being a diversion or a catalyst to set the plan in motion. So first sus clue, George had had the wiring inspected by the power company in autumn, only a few months prior after installing an electric stove. They had been like, you Gucci, it's fine. It's all in working order. Creepy insurance guy, predicting the entire disaster only 2 months prior, was also a juror on the inquest convened by the coroner to be like, yep, the evidence points to it being a house fire.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there are appliances left behind in the aftermath, further debunking the claim that the fire was so hot it would have cremated the children. The phone line hadn't been destroyed in the fire, but was cut at the telephone pole 4.5 meters above the ground.
That's what they needed the ladder for.
Yes. Yeah. And then George's ladder was later discovered thrown down a ditch 20 meters from the house.
Fuck, okay.
Yep.
So it was still there.
Yes. So there was all this sus shit going on. George and Jenny knew this all didn't add up. But they still plant the memorial garden and they carry on. Though they believed their children to be alive, they were still, like, grieving, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So papers report on the tragedy, the word gets out, and people start to come forward. A bus driver had passed the Sodder house on his route on Christmas Eve and claims to have seen people throwing balls of fire, quote, at the house. So a few months later, after the snow had melted, Sylvia, the youngest, had found a green, like, rubber ball in the scrub by the house, and George described its appearance akin to a pineapple bomb, which is like a napalm grenade.
Yeah.
Another witness claims to have actually seen the missing Sodder children on the night of the fire. The woman says that she had stood on the side of the road to watch the fire, as nosy neighbours do. Nope. And the car drove past her and saw the children looking out of the window. Another woman said she had served the children breakfast on Christmas morning at a rest stop between Fayetteville and Charleston, which is in the next state over. A week after the fire, another witness outside of Charleston saw the children. They were accompanied by 2 men and 2 women, all of Italian extraction, quote. One of the men spoke to the children in very aggressive Italian, and the witness left them alone.
Italian is really aggressive.
Yes. Extra aggressive.
Yeah. This is true.
It's a beautiful language.
It is a beautiful
But yes.
language. It's just also very frightening.
It is. I feel like it is.
Yep.
Being yelled at is scary enough as it is, but being yelled at in a way that you don't understand would be even scarier. So all of these people start to come forward. The Sodders pleaded with the FBI to help, but the Fayetteville police and fire department refused to cooperate. Suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So the family, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, it is suspicious, but also there's, like, the opposite side of this, because this is something that popped up in my story this week a few times. Money. If, like, a small town, like, it's not super small, Fayetteville, we've heard of it before, but I don't know how big it was in the 40s, 50s, 60s sort of thing. And during a war, there might not have been a lot of resources. Exactly. And they might have been like, there's not enough reason for us to fucking follow this up. We don't have the money to do it, you know, like. So it is suspicious, but at the same time, it's also kind of not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the rest of it makes it super suspicious.
Mm-hmm. So the family took investigations into their own hands. So with the help of a PI, they discovered through that PI that the salesman who had threatened George in 1945 was indeed on the jury at the inquest. So that's kind of like fueling it. Shitty way to describe it. It is fueling their fire.
Yeah.
Like they want to know. So this is like, this connection motivates them to like follow their hunches, basically. So George follows leads all across the country. Someone claimed that Martha was being held in a convent. A convent in St. Louis. George saw a photograph of a young girl in a magazine. The photo was taken in New York at a school that looked like his young daughter Betty. He drove all the way to the school and demanded to see her, but he was refused. Fair.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Some dude just shows up at the school like, show me the girl!
Yeah. So we're going to fast forward a little bit to 1967. So George drove to Houston to investigate a claim from a woman that his son Louis had confessed his true identity to her after too much to drink. She had written to the Sodders with her claim, but George was unable to speak with her or find her upon arriving. And then the Sodders received another letter the same year that contained a photograph of a man in his 30s who looked exactly like Louis. On the back was written Louis Sodder and a bunch of cryptic shit. So it said, I love brother Frankie, Lily Boys, A90132 or 35.
Okay.
So I was a little curious as to what all of that meant, so I did a little bit of sleuthing. On websleuth.com.
Yes.
And this websleuth.com is actually pretty cool. This is where I fell down the rabbit hole of like research, because it's like people, it's kind of like Reddit, how people, but it's a message board, and it's like people trying to solve like cold cases, basically.
Nice.
And apparently there was like a whole post because someone was like, what does the stuff on the back of the photo mean? And apparently there's a dialect of Italian, or there's a way of writing a certain way where T's aren't crossed.
Oh.
And Lily boys could have been misspelt as Italy boys, but ITLI.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the A90132 could have either been like a Canadian area code, or there's another way of writing in a certain dialect of Italian where at A means like at,
Yeah.
and then OR means like something else, and it's like it could have been like something to do with like a war register number or something like that, like. And then people were trying to like, what does Brother Frankie mean? And some people were like, oh, it could have been a teacher at a Catholic school, as in like brother, who's like,
Yeah, like a priest.
yes, devoted themselves to God but hasn't taken the full jump. And it was just this whole rabbit hole. So if you do have time and you want to go on websleuth.com, I highly recommend it. It's very, very interesting. Also, this photo of Louis Soda, very handsome.
I think I've
Stunning
seen it.
boy.
Yeah.
Stunning. Because when the fire happened, Louis was about 9. So it was about 23 years later. So early 30s. This is very much, could have been him. And when you see the picture on file of Louis as a young boy and this supposed Louis in the photo, they look very similar.
Yeah.
Like it's quite uncanny. So I can understand why the Sodders were like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they hired another PI to investigate this because the letter was postmarked from Kentucky, but there was no return address. The PI went to investigate and he disappeared.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember reading about that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, so he just took your fucking money. That's so sad.
Like, maybe. Like, I don't know, did he fuck off with the money? But then, like, he has a reputation as a PI. I don't know. Was he just a con man? Like, we don't know. And there wasn't, like, a lot of info on the dude. So it's just like, oh, yeah, he disappeared and no one seems to give a shit.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. So the family took the photo that they were sent, and they had started like a bunch of these billboards being like, if you have any information on our kids, please tell us. And so they put the photo of Louis on the billboard as well, along with the plea for like, any info, please let us know. There's a $5,000 reward. I believe that was doubled at one point, and for like the 60s, like $5,000 is a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Fuck
Yeah.
yeah.
So George died in 1969, not too long after.
Must have been so stressful.
Yeah, like it got him early. Yeah, so that was like 2 years after the photo. They received the photo, he died. And then Jenny died 20 years later, which is really sad. But she tended to that memorial garden every day, which is very sweet.
Very sad.
Sylvia, the youngest Sodder child and last known living, promised to carry out her parents' investigation and not let the story die. The 5 missing Sodder children have not yet been found. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fucking dark and
Yeah.
sad.
It's
Holy
really dark.
shit.
There's a couple of theories online.
Yeah.
Ooh.
One is all kind of like around the fact that George was so vocal about him not fucking with Mussolini, and it was World War II, so everyone was just like super high strung, and like, I guess it's just a really politically driven time, so anyone shitting on anyone, I feel like, would give someone enough motivation to fuck with them.
So George was like, Mussolini is amazing.
No, he hated Mussolini.
Yeah.
He didn't fuck with him at all. He was like, he's the worst. He's a fascist. He's the worst. And there was a lot of Italian Americans at the time who were like, no.
How dare you? Yeah.
Yeah. But then, yeah.
It's also interesting to see. So what was his proper, like, Italian surname?
Let me scroll up. It was Soddu, Soddu. Soddu.
So he's changed it to a more English Sodder.
Yeah, yeah.
As a lot of
So he
people
was-
did, because if you were Italian or German at that time, you also couldn't serve. So her son with that Italian last name wouldn't have been able to serve in the army if he
Yes.
had it.
Oh.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So
Because his name was Giorgio, so George is
yeah.
like the,
and all of the kids have like
Americanization.
quite American, names.
yeah, like John, Martha, Jenny, Betty, they're all very like,
Yeah, they're very
Yeah.
White picket fence American
Yeah.
names, aren't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the one that is serving Joe is like the most white bread American name, Joe Sodder.
they? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the theory that like there was one that was raised online that it was the Sicilian mafia. But like I read a
Why?
little bit deeper because I was like, why? The Sicilian mafia did not fuck with Mussolini. They actually a lot of the like I guess you could call them mafia families at the time were working with Allied forces against Mussolini. Like
because
it
he was
wasn't the
fucking
mafia.
up their whole operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted to do their shit and he wouldn't let them. So it's like, no. But then again, there could very much have been like members of the community in Fayetteville who were like, fuck you. But like enough to take kids is pretty harsh.
But like,
Yeah.
why? Like, I know this is going to be dark. Like, 5 kids, just kill them, right? Who needs
Right?
5
Yeah.
kids? Right?
To send
Yeah.
a message, burning down a house where they're maybe dead, maybe not, like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't seem like the style of a group of, an organization that's all about being ballsy as fuck and then being like, we didn't do shit. And then
Yeah.
everyone would be like, no, you never did anything. Of course not, even though we watched you do it.
Yeah.
So we're too fucking scared to say shit. You wouldn't leave the rest of the family around? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
I
it
don't
seems weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I am not fucking an aficionado when it comes to
Who
organized crime.
knows? Who knows? We don't know. But that is the mysterious disappearance of 5 of the 10 Sodder children.
Fuck, it's so wild.
Yeah.
There's so many details in this. I got caught up in it, but I don't know if you mentioned the heart.
Oh, I
Oh,
didn't though.
yeah.
There's a whole nother, there's a whole nother fucking chapter of a heart and some bones. So
That stuff always
Yeah.
makes me go like, what the fuck?
yeah, like that was like a whole. So yeah, so for those who don't know, apparently they had found a human heart in the remains, and a relative of Jenny, the mother Jenny, worked for the fire department and had taken the supposed heart and buried it. But then when it was dug up, it was found to not be a heart. It was quite a fresh cow's liver, and it had not touched heat at
Yeah.
all. And he had done it so in a way to lie and give them closure so they could let it go, which is
Oh.
pretty fucked up.
That is fucked up.
Yes,
Really
and there was
messed up.
there
Is
was
there any-
also.
Oh, no, you go.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's just a whole nother kettle of fish was the fact they'd found bones in the garden, but it had later been debunked because George's job is hauling soil. The soil he had taken was from the local cemetery where he was doing a job, and there was human remains in the soil that did not match with the age range of any of the children
Yeah.
Yeah.
that were missing.
Wild.
Just to fuck with them some more. Like all this happenstance around it as well is just making it worse.
See, I think that the parents did it.
Do you really?
Ooh,
Why?
I do.
interesting.
A lot of the evidence is, well, back to the children. Who wants to get rid of the children? The parents do. They have 5. They have 10 of them. So get rid of half of them. That seems more like plausible to me. All of the evidence. So he says the ladder wasn't there. He said like exactly what the insurance man said, which
Yeah.
you know, a lot of the evidence is based on what the parents have said.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting. So do you
That's-
think them like going crazy trying to find them over the years afterwards is just sort of like a way to be like, yeah, we definitely didn't do it. Look how hard we want to find our kids.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's an interesting
that
take
one.
that I did not consider.
Yeah.
Because
No, I
all
hadn't
of
thought
the
about it that
evidence doesn't, like, paint it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm just, like, taking it at face value. Interesting.
way. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I have some sources.
Yeah,
Sources.
girl.
We've got websleuths.com.
Yes.
Good old wiki, just to give me the rundown.
Wow.
Elemental cremation and burial.
Cool. Yeah.
There's some cool little threads I found on Quora. And unresolved mysteries on Reddit.
Lovely.
You read it.
Thank you, Reddit. Thank you, Hags.
Thank you. That story was dope. I love it. I love it so much. You can. There's some that you like hear about over and over, but even though you know nothing new has happened, you go back to the Wikipedia page every couple of years just to be like, "That's right. I want to
Yeah.
remember this. I want to know about this again."
100%.
All the horrible things sort of blur together in your head after a while.
Yes. Getting the info mixed up. Was this the one about the burnt kids, or is this the one about the... Oh, no, it was... Okay, the burnt kids. Okay, cool.
I always get the Sutter children and the Beaumont children. Like,
Is that the
sort
one
of
from
they're-
Adelaide?
tangled. Yes.
Yes.
What? But they're different. So
Yeah,
different.
but they have. I know, but it's like missing kids. There's so many versions of missing kids, and it's just like just a bunch of kids that disappeared, and the
Yes.
circumstances around it are different, sure. But at the end of the day, someone's missing, and
Yeah.
it's just a group of them, and it's mysterious circumstances.
Yeah.
There's so many. There's like hundreds upon hundreds
So
of them. So
many.
you're just like, well, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, those sort of children are definitely buried in that cemetery.
Cool.
I mean, he could have used his own fucking trucks.
True. True. What do you
Oh,
reckon that
God.
like they were indiscriminate about which kids they got rid of, or were they like, well, Joe's at war, so we can't do shit
We
about
can't
him,
do
so I guess
we
he
can't
stays."
kill him. He'll probably die over there. Like, let's be fingers crossed. The baby, because we like a baby. Yeah, she just got rid of the kids she hated. Done.
Fuck.
The bratty ones who played with the toys.
Yeah, fuck them. That was their last night of good fun, and until they went to the cemetery with their dad.
Fuck. Let's
Just
go.
paints it in a
I've thought
whole
about
new
it that
light.
way. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Interesting.
I must rethink everything. Amazing. I've done such a 180 in the space of 30 minutes. This is huge.
No. Tell us again from the start.
From the top.
From the top. We now need to analyze it from this point of view.
Who's next, Hags?
It is I.
Take it away.
Okay, guys. Today we're going to explore America's oldest mystery, the disappearance of the Roanoke colony.
Yay! So, full disclosure, I know nothing about
Good.
Roanoke.
Keep it that way.
Honestly, not a single detail except American Horror Story did a season on it, and I don't know what the season is about.
Oh, they did a really dumb season on it. It sucks.
They could have done it. They could have done it better, I think. But
Okay.
it's very.
Well,
fun.
I just think it's quite funny that I've gone my entire teen and adult life being obsessed with this shit and never reading about it.
It's so funny the ones you miss.
Yeah, right? So I'm very excited for this one.
Laura, do you
I'll be
know
listening along.
much about it?
Oh, fuck yeah, I love Ron. I'm like a freak for these sort of things. This is one of the ones that would have popped up when I was a kid renting out books at the library.
Yeah,
that's like
that's where I heard of it.
weirdest ghost
Yeah.
stories and mysteries
Yes.
you never knew about.
Yes.
Like, they were priming me for this. I have had a long, sordid history with creepy shit and staying up late and not being able to sleep because I scared myself to
Oh
death.
yeah.
And the school library had a lot to do with it.
That is me too. All right.
Why would you stock that book? Anyway, continue.
Because the teachers wanted to read it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the disappearance has acquired hundreds of theories, but the 433-year-old mystery remains unsolved to this day. So it'll be 433 years this July. So,
Oh.
yeah. I did math for this, guys. All right,
Well done.
guys. A little introduction to the Elizabethan world.
Yes, please take us on this journey.
Water was so contaminated that people drank ale or wine, or breast milk. Some people never
Oh.
had water.
Oh.
That's how
Holy
contaminated it was.
shit. Oh, can you imagine their skin?
Men wore overly stuffed cod pieces, as it was very fashionable to look like you had a massive boner. Like
Just
a
a,
massive
just
boner.
just a huge hog.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to be William Dafoe.
What is it? How is it described as alarmingly large?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that. It's like uncomfortably large. It's threateningly large. That's
Threateningly
it.
large, yeah.
You guys have seen the GIF, yeah?
Oh, of course.
yeah.
It's probably saved
Oh,
on my
yeah.
computer somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I look it up every so often just for funsies. I loved when La was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Have I got something for you?"
Let me show you.
Let me smack
For
you in the
those-
face with it.
And for those of you who don't know, there is a GIF that you can easily Google of Willem Dafoe dancing naked on a set of a movie with a woman, and he has a very upsettingly big penis.
And it's his
And
penis.
And
Yeah,
it's
it
just,
is.
it's not even at half mast.
I wonder if he's a grower. He might just be a shower.
I don't know.
Oh God.
Maybe. So many
I-
questions.
I'm
Anyway,
uncomfortable thinking
away
about
from
it.
dicks, back to this.
No, let's talk about Antichrist, where we have to see it
Oh,
over
Christ.
and over again, and it gets crushed by a block of wood.
Ah!
Oh.
Anyway, sorry, continue.
Okay. Massive boner. Tomatoes were considered poisonous, and a redhead sat on the throne of England, as it should be, I think. So in 1587, so this is for the millennial timeline. This was 20 years before John Smith and Pocahontas painted with all the colours of the wind, just to get
You mean
everything.
when John Smith had a weird relationship with a 13-year-old?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
20
history.
years before the weird
Okay.
relationship. Okay. So Governor John White took 115 colonists from England to establish a community on Roanoke Island off the coast of what is now North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
The colony was made up of 87 men, 17 women, and 11 children.
Oh.
So, yeah, I would assume all those 17 women were married to some of those dudes, you know,
Yeah.
because there ain't a lot of them to share around.
Everyone's walking around with massive hogs.
Massive hogs. Not eating tomatoes. So,
How much would it suck to be the other fucking, 17 out of 87? You know,
Yeah.
50-odd people there who are just like, fuck,
who
What?
have no one to bang. Yeah, I know.
Just jerking it
That's
so
all
right.
right.
Those erections were
I
real,
guess.
guys. Yeah, they were. Yeah. So on the way across, one of their ships from their fleet struck a shoal and lost a lot of its cargo. So when the colony arrived after 4 months at sea, they were dangerously low on food and supplies, and they were also under attack from the Native Americans, who weren't really super pleased about them being there.
Fair.
Yep.
Yeah, they shouldn't have been.
No.
Didn't get better.
No. So within the first month of arrival, the governor decided to make the trip back to England, intending to return with more supplies and more people. And one of the people John White left behind was his daughter Eleanor White Dare, who had just given birth to a baby girl called Virginia Dare, the first baby born to English parents in America. So she
Ooh.
was the first white baby born in America
That we know of.
that we know of.
Yeah.
I mean-
I was going to say, because hadn't the Dutch been
No,
to America like many, many years before?
No, it was he was Scandinavian, the guy who discovered America. Christopher Columbus took credit for it, but this guy discovered
Yeah.
it back in 10 something or other. And was
Yeah,
like,
I think-
no.
I can never remember if this is legit because it's something Neil Gaiman wrote a short story about, but they think there may have been Viking longships that
Oh, yeah, no,
were
that's
discovered, like
legit.
remnants of them.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. But like that was like a long fucking time
Oh,
before
yeah.
Christopher Columbus came
Yeah.
along.
I think
The first
14
English
something
born.
was when he discovered America. Okay, so unfortunately his trip was postponed because England decided that they were at war with Spain.
Yeah.
And by order of
Naturally.
Queen Elizabeth, all of the ships were commandeered to fight the Spanish Armada, who were at the time the biggest fucking threat in the water. So by the time John White actually made it back to Roanoke Island with all the supplies and all the people, 3 years had passed. So he'd left
That's
them
so
alone,
wild.
under attack by Native Americans, without a lot of food or supplies for that long.
Yeah, that's a hot minute. That's like when you're like, he's not coming back.
No.
Watching him sail off into the distance, you're like, we're never going to see that guy again.
Yeah. So
As someone who's spending isolation glued to their phone, craving any kind of communication, even if it's just a like on a post that gives me a fleeting second of serotonin, the fact that they didn't hear from them for 3 years fucks me up beyond belief.
Yeah.
Like, that's so crazy.
yeah.
There is no Zoom meeting to have with
No.
England.
So, unsurprisingly, he came back and found that the whole colony had completely vanished. The only clues left was the word CROATOAN etched into a tree, and another word CRO, which is the site of CROATOAN, etched into a pole, and a single skeleton. Just one. Just the
I
one.
don't know who it was.
No. Well, they know it's like Anglo-male. Like, they can't really go far from there. So CROATOAN was a name of both a nearby Native American tribe and also an island, which was inhabited by that tribe, which was south of Roanoke. So the Native Americans that were attacking the Roanoke colony were the Roanoke Native Americans, two different tribes. Mm-hmm. So the main theory is that, or what John White thought, was that they'd moved to CROATOAN Island to escape the Roanoke tribe. Maybe the CROATOANs were better than the Roanoke tribe. So John White tried to sail to CROATOAN Island twice to try and get there, but they were stopped by huge storms, and because the ships that he was on were privately owned, he couldn't like just wreck them, right? Couldn't run them aground. That's what you do.
Yeah.
So John White returned to England and lived out the rest of his days, never knowing what happened to his family.
That's
Sad.
devastatingly sad. That's super sad.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Anyway, so the theories are... So the most obvious one is that they tried to sail back to England but were lost at sea. But, like, that's boring. So... other theories are alien abduction,
Of course.
I like that
naturally.
one.
Where else do you go?
witchcraft.
Ooh, I like that one
too.
too.
I'm into that.
There was a lot of, like, the Native Americans believed that there were witches that lived in the woods there, so, you know, they killed them. Another one was just that they were transformed into trees.
Oh, Annihilation style. Okay, we get that. Yeah,
I
yeah.
like it. I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. The
Paint
science
all the
adds
colours
up.
of the wind, Grandma Willow. Yeah.
Yep.
Trying to tell us something Disney knows.
They do. Also, there were reports from various other tribes that observed the Roanoke colony that there was a lot of infighting in the colony itself. That you know. So a lot of the Native Americans believed that the colonists had been partaking in a little thing we like to call cannibalism. And their bodies had been taken over by a Wendigo. So when people eat human flesh, their body turns into a monster. It's called Prion's disease, but that's okay.
That's a whole nother terrifying kettle of fish there.
So according to local belief, Wendigos don't die. They are still alive, roaming the woods of North Carolina. And that's why there's no bodies.
That's what is the creature in Pet Sematary.
Spoilers.
Oh my god.
It's a 20-year-old movie and like a 40-year-old book. But still,
we have
if
to
you
say.
haven't done it by now, too late.
Yes.
Another one is like disease, especially if it was like leading to for the mental health to suffer. So this could have led to like violent paranoia and intense things and eating each other, that kind of nice stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The two main ones that, the three main ones were that they were assimilated into a Native American tribe because there were evidence of Native Americans a couple of years down the road having grey eyes.
Oh.
Which wouldn't that be stunning?
Yeah.
Yes.
God, yes. Also, they might have been murdered by Pocahontas' dad.
Oh, okay.
Ah!
Chief Powhatan confessed to John Smith that he was responsible for the execution of an entire colony. And seeing as they were only missing one at the time, we can guess that it might have been Roanoke.
Huh.
That's really interesting. I like it. Marvel Universe, tie-ins. Get it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Disney's covering it up.
Yeah.
So, have any of you heard of Sir Walter Raleigh?
No.
That's ringing a bell so deep and dark in my head. Maybe.
Excellent.
Continue.
He was a very important man. So the charter of the colony of Virginia, like the whole sort of state, was given to Sir Walter Raleigh by Queen Elizabeth, and he was kind of responsible for what went on, and they were trying to colonize America because, of course, they were having that problem with the Spanish.
Yes.
Yeah. So who were already in Florida and fucking stuff up down there. So they were trying to colonize as much as possible.
Yeah.
So
That's right. It was like a race at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah. So one of the biggest theories is the colony was sabotaged by the political enemies of Sir Walter Raleigh to undermine him. So Sir Walter Raleigh was a writer, poet, spy, soldier, politician, courtier, and explorer.
Ooh.
He was
What a
also,
repertoire.
he is also the guy who brought tobacco and potatoes to the UK. So every
That's
time
where
you're
I've heard
having
his
a
name.
chip and a cigarette at the same time, Sir Walter Raleigh is present. It's
Mate,
also
thank you,
who
Walter.
experts credit many of Shakespeare's works. They think that he wrote all those plays.
Yeah.
Ah, cool.
That's where I've heard. I didn't know they were the same dude. Wait,
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
look at him go.
And also, he was also super duper, definitely, absolutely, completely, unquestionably, allegedly banging the Virgin Queen of England. So
What a king.
I know, right? But he couldn't be king
wanted to
because
be.
she didn't.
No.
She didn't marry. She didn't want to marry anybody because she wanted to be in control. So this made
yeah.
him similar
How
to the
good.
king because he was banging her. So that's like it was a huge power grab. So that's why maybe the colony was set up that way.
Ah.
In closing, the Croatoan and Roanoke Islands have been excavated, almost every year since 1960.
Oh,
So
wow.
far, archaeologists have found no evidence of any mass graves or any Anglo existence around the time that they should have been there. So they found bits of pots and some jewelry and things like that, but they have been dated to further along in history, so it's not the same people.
Right.
So apart from that one skeleton, no other bodies have ever been found. And no, there's nowhere. The islands aren't that big. They would have found them. And that is the disappearance of the Roanoke colony.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I love that one. It's fucking wild.
It's so interesting. I'm gonna have to go and have a further deep dive after this. Thank you.
That's what pisses me out about the American Horror Story season of it. It's it's such an interesting story, and you gave us that trash. Ugh. I'm sorry.
I'll probably watch the trash.
Yeah, definitely watch it.
Yeah.
The thing that I always find with that show is I start off being invested because it's kind of cool and there's a big production
Yes.
value and everything.
Yep.
And then slowly over time I realize I hate all these characters and I actually actively want them to die, but I don't care enough to stay here and watch it. So I'm just going to
Yes.
turn it off, but I'm 8 episodes deep and I never finish a season. I literally haven't finished one. But I've started
happened with
watching
me
all of
too.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I finished Murder House.
The first
I
one.
lose steam. They all the seasons seem to lose a little bit of steam.
Yeah.
They do, they really do.
I've seen the first 4 seasons, I think.
The most I've watched is probably Hotel, which has Lady Gaga in it, because I have a weird thing for her, and I really wanted to see her
Oh, the
succeed as an
Countess.
actor.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was a good time. But yeah, just they have too many weird plot lines going on. They don't
Yes.
resolve satisfactorily, so you're just whatever, I don't care.
It's kind of one of those TV shows that they should have put everything out on the table and been we don't need this and we don't need that.
Yes.
We don't need that. Just,
You don't need 24 episodes in a season that are an hour long each for
No.
a start.
No,
I don't
that
know.
feels like
Yeah.
a trap that a lot of American television seems to fall into.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sources before I totally
Yes.
forget, guys. Okay, so Wikipedia, yes.
Yes.
Britannica, history.com,
Yes.
littlethings.com, nationalgeographic.com. ACO went for like highbrow stuff to get you this good
Ooh.
shit.
Proud of
Also,
you.
and then some lowbrow, BuzzFeed Unsolved,
Mate, the lowest of the brow, but we love it
the
anyway.
lowest of the brow. The
Wheeze.
only BuzzFeed thing I watch now is Shane and Ryan, and they did the mysterious disappearance of the Roanoke colony. They had different theories than the ones that I focused on.
Okay.
So if
So
you,
still
you
worth
needed,
watching.
yeah, still worth watching. If you want to,
Because Ryan would have fucking glommed onto that UFO shit like nothing else.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. So that is Roanoke.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yay. Very keen. I loved it. I had a great time. Cheers.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for the journey.
Yes, Laura. Your
yeah.
turn.
Here she
Mine's
comes.
a bit weird. It's not. I picked this because I don't know where else to put it, and I really want to do it.
Okay.
Do you guys know much about Missing 411?
Zero.
Zero. Oh,
I know
shit.
nothing. I don't even know what it is.
I went on a huge deep dive.
Yeah, because I told you about it when we first met, I think. And
When
I was
we
like,
first
look
met,
at this.
And then I couldn't stop. But I love it so much. I mean,
And there's so much that you kind of can't.
you
finish.
can't know all the stories. Like you can't.
I know.
So yeah,
No, you can't.
into it.
Um,
Also, can you guys hear me eating Easter eggs?
No, but I
Okay.
would like an Easter egg now. I'll
do you
have to
have
wait.
any stray? Oh, that's right. Your grandma.
Yes,
gave
my
you
sweet grandmother dropped one off on my doorstep at a very acceptable social distance this morning. It was very
Aw,
sweet.
Bless her.
All right,
Now
carry
I can
on.
hear you eating something, whatever you do.
Fuck. Hang on a second. I'll cover my mic. You carry on.
Okay. All right. So cool. So this is a thing that I stumbled on a couple of years ago. And I'm gonna try and like introduce it, and then we'll just go through a couple of cases.
Okay.
So there's so much that if I start going on for too long, y'all are gonna need to be like, shut the fuck up. We get the picture.
Never.
So we're gonna start with David Paulides. And he's sort of like the man for this. There has eventually popped up something called the Can-Am Missing Project. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the very end. But pretty much all of this is David.
Okay.
So Paulides is a former police detective. He spent 20 years in the California Municipal Department. He left the force and became an author. And while he was visiting a national park for research for one of his books, a park ranger who knew of him already approached him and asked him to investigate a number of missing persons cases that had taken place in the park. They felt that the cases had like significant similarities, were unusual, and they'd experienced difficulty getting any further information. And basically it had gotten to the point where they were frustrated and wanted someone on the outside to investigate it for them. And Paulides agreed and said he would do it. So, I'm going to tell you the things that they have in common, because these are things to listen out for in each of these cases.
Okay.
So basically, each case involves people, typically hikers, who go missing in North American national parks. Over the years, because he's been doing this for quite a while now, he's expanded it to international parks. But most of these, I've focused all of these on the North American ones, because that's where he spent most of his time doing this. They're of all ages. They start, many of them often are living with a disability or have an illness of some sort when they go missing.
Okay.
The point of separation is where the victim disappears. So the victim very rarely goes out alone. They usually go out with others. They wander away from them, and the most common time they wander away is in the afternoon, and they are missing from that moment. So it's not like they lose track of them and a couple of hours later realize, oh fuck, we haven't seen him for a while. They disappear, they turn around, they are gone. It's wild. So other factors that we see a lot in these cases is canine units can't track them, or they lose the scent.
Yep.
They are often lost near water or near boulder fields. So like rock fields sort of thing, or like the side of a mountain that's just loose scree and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Weather events often disrupt the search or take place when the victim disappears, like random weather events that suddenly are really intense. Geographically, they are clustered in certain areas. If they are found and if they are dead, the cause of death is unknown, and they often are missing clothing. They're often found many, many miles away over difficult terrain from where they disappeared, and if they are located, it's usually 1 to a couple of years later in locations that were searched many, many times.
Oh.
Yeah, so it seems like a pretty broad set of rules. Like, you go
It's
missing in the
so
parks. Some of those
It's so
are gonna
spooky.
If we
Well-
ever release our forest episode, that is the Bennington Triangle. That's just it.
Well, it comes into it, actually. There are some cases that it is a cluster.
Ooh.
So there are some things that eliminate immediately from being a missing 411 case, because this is what he calls these cases. They're part of the missing 411 thing. So if their victim has a history of mental illness of any kind, he eliminates it immediately. If they have a voluntary disappearance as a possibility, he'll eliminate it.
Yeah.
Criminal activity in their background, eliminated. And if there's any sign of animal predation whatsoever, he eliminates it. Yeah. So those are very basic. Doesn't sound that interesting, but it starts to get a bit fucking weird.
Yes.
So I watched a couple of documentaries on it. Because there are 2. And I paid to watch these, by the way, so...
Oh, wow. You got
The
some-
real research.
got money.
I did. I paid like $12 to watch 2 documentaries that Paulides produced. So the one that they start with in the first documentary is a 2-year-old boy called Dior Kunz. He's Dior Kunz Jr. His dad is also called Dior. So they were camping at Timber Creek Campground in the Salmon Challis National Forest in Idaho. It's a small remote town called Lador. He was with his father, his mother, Jessica, Jessica's grandpa, Bob, and Bob's good friend, Isaac. There are no other campers around at all. They arrive late at the campground, they park the trailer by the creek, pitch their tent, and then they go to sleep. The next day, they go and get supplies from the general store, so little Dior, big Dior, and Jessica the mum.
Yep.
And they leave Grandpa and Isaac behind. When they get back, Grandpa and Isaac have some fish that they claim they caught in the creek, and the dad doesn't believe they caught the fish themselves and asks to go and see where they caught it from. So basically, Dior Sr., Isaac, and Jessica go to the fishing spot, and little Dior starts to follow them for a few feet, and then he turns around and heads back to camp. And they assume Grandpa is watching over Dior. And Mum Jessica keeps turning around to make sure he was not following them. Once they were sure he wasn't, they basically walk about 45 meters along the creek and look at this spot where there are fish for 10 to 15 minutes.
Right.
They head back to get Dior Jr. to show them, because there's little fish, you'll want to see it. And they get back and ask Grandpa where he is. He says he's right here, and he's not there. They search.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. Just gone. So they search for 20 minutes, there's no luck. Grandpa claims he never went inside his trailer. Dior was right next to him, and his mother immediately calls 911 within an hour of his disappearance. So Dior disappeared 5 years ago on July 10th in 2015. They spend like 10,000 man hours over extremely rugged terrain, basically doing what they call a 5-step search. You take 5 steps, you look up, you look down, you look around, and then you take another 5 steps. And you do it in a formation where basically it's the 1.5 meter rule of social distancing. You spread your arms out and you touch fingers with the person next to you who also has their arms spread out, and you just all do that.
So
Okay, so it's like
romantic.
a sweep.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, even though you think that, there's not that many people walking over it aren't going to miss anything, they're literally staring at the ground, looking around constantly. So there's 200 plus searches the day after he went missing looking for him. There are horses, dirt bikes, people on foot. There are people crawling through the creek, like literally inside the creek. It's not particularly deep and it's quite small. They check wolf dens, they check bear dens, they check eagle nests because he is actually just small enough to be picked up by an eagle. If an animal took him, authorities confirm there must be some sort of remains left behind, like blood or bone or clothing. eventually they would find it, even if it was like, say he was picked up and taken into a nest, eventually the nest would disintegrate. And his clothing or something would be left behind, or at least, you know, they can't just completely consume a small child and have nothing left behind.
Yeah.
So in June of 2019, last year, 3 different cadaver dogs alerted to human remains at the campground where he went missing, and a small piece of bone was found. But in March 2020, the county sheriff confirmed there was no human DNA recovered from the remains.
So, not a human bone?
Well, they can't find any human DNA on it, which seems more than likely it's not, but who knows? Like, DNA is not as cut and dry as we think it is a lot of the time. Something I'm slowly getting upset learning about, because I'm like, no, if there is part of a person there, it must be easy to figure it out. No, apparently it's not.
Hollywood lied, how dare!
It did enhance. It's so fucking shit. But that's Dior. That's the little boy that they start off with, the missing 411, and they go back to him quite a bit. But we've covered everything that's the basic sort of details of how we went missing. They do focus on the documentary on a lot of, like, what was Grandpa doing? What's going on with this dude Isaac? The parents act a bit weird, but the parents themselves, the way they're acting weird is pretty understandable when you hear what they're talking, like, from their point of view, because the documentary does interview them. Basically, people were like, oh, they're very suspicious because she sounds super calm during the 911 call. She doesn't. She sounds like someone who's barely tethered together, going like, I need to get this information across, but I'm falling apart because my son's been fucking missing for an hour.
Yes.
And they didn't want to be on camera, and they're like, because no matter what we do, everything gets twisted around.
Yes.
And, like, you know, we want people to find my son. We don't want them to look at us and think that we did something and stop looking for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're a bit weird, but it's quite understandable how they are weird. But the granddad is a fucking weirdo, so...
Yeah.
It's a really interesting documentary, and I would recommend watching it if you want to know a bit more about Dior in particular. But, seeing as we have a lot of cases, I thought we would skim over that and get right on down to Aaron Hedges.
Nice.
Ooh. So Aaron Hedges is 38 years old. He goes missing in September of 2014. He goes missing in the Crazy Mountains in Montana. They're called the Crazies. It's a really young mountain formation. It's like the youngest in the USA, and basically on this mountain range, if you walk down and you follow a stream, you're gonna get out of the mountains. Like, you're not gonna just walk into thousands upon thousands of acres of, like, forest. You'll eventually, if you follow it down and follow a creek, get out of them.
It's handy.
So he's an experienced hunter. He is with 2 friends, and he goes elk hunting with 2 horses and a mule. They go on a week-long hunting trip, and on the way into the Crazies, the mule gets spooked and begins bucking supplies off the trail, and most of Aaron's camping supplies were on the mule, and they lose it. So he ends up with only his sleeping bag, and being an experienced hunter who's there every other weekend, one of the men has a cache that's like couple of miles up in the general area they're intending to go anyway. So he's like, well, I'll walk ahead and I'll go get the cache. You guys go to the camping place we meant to go to, and I'll meet you there tomorrow. I'll spend the night at the cache and then come back. They have walkie-talkies with GPS positions, so they can see where each other is. Like, they're very experienced. There's like, we're definitely going to be able to find each other. It's not like I'm just sending someone out into the wilderness and be like, hope to see you soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, Aaron goes ahead. They keep in touch with him. They basically are seeing his GPS position move along, and then at the last point where they catch up with him over the walkie-talkie and see his position on the GPS, he's walking away from where he's supposed to be going back to them. So he's been to the cache and he's supposed to be coming back towards them, and he's disappeared. Like, he's going a different direction. It's right at the edge of their GPS map.
That's weird.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
That's-
they realize
seeing him moving makes me like,
Ooh.
oh, yuck.
I
It's so
don't
spooky.
Like it.
No.
I don't like it. So they realize the next day he's missing. They waited for a day, they looked for a day, and then a storm hit. So it snowed up to a meter in 12 hours.
Oh,
Oh,
Um,
God.
Yeah, it drops to negative 12 degrees Celsius. They call the sheriff's department, and a search begins, and they find no footprints leaving the area. So, in a meter of snow, you're going to see something.
Yeah.
Either he's gone to sleep somewhere and he's under the snow and he's not waking up, but they should be able to find him at some point because he didn't leave.
Yeah.
So they get dogs and they search and they find a pair of boots set side by side with a water bladder, a fire pit with a burnt cigarette packet in it, which is Aaron's brand.
Nice.
And they also find 2 backpack waist straps. The items are found in the area they had already searched the day before with a professional search and rescue team. So it's not just some bumpkins being like, nope, nothing here. It's dudes who know how to do this properly.
Yeah.
9 months later, they find a backpack on a rancher's property. It's still filled with food. It has a gun, a fire starter, everything. It is in view of their fence line. It is in view of their house.
Oh.
Yeah, so the backpack where it sat would have been looking, the person who had it would have been looking down at a road and buildings that belong to the ranchers.
Yeah.
Okay.
A year after the dude, like, they have found this backpack, a dude ranch group on a ride spots a human skull just sitting beneath a dead tree.
Oh, God.
The police go and investigate and find further remains, a femur, a pelvis, a cell phone, and a jacket that both belong to Aaron, and it's just 1 to 3 kilometers away from the backpack. By air, the remains are about 18 kilometers away from where he was last seen, and 8 kilometers away from the boots, and there is no known cause of death. The bones are not broken. The bones were just there, but not all of them.
All of this evidence just spawning into reality at these incremented times is so buck wild.
It's fucking wild.
What happened?
Yeah. So that's Aaron. Now we are going to go on to Jared. So
Jared.
So 2 men are hiking in the Comanche Peak Wilderness in Colorado of June of 2003, and they decide to hike up an elevation of about 600 meters over a rock fiord to the mountaintop. It's super difficult terrain. Like, these 2 experienced hikers are basically like clambering up on their hands and knees.
Right.
And as they're doing it, they spot a little kid's shoe that looks like it literally has just fallen off. It's pristine. Like, in the documentary, you can see it looks like someone just bought it. There's nothing on it. They find out it belongs to Jared Adadero. So in 1999, 4 years before, on October the 2nd, a group of Christian singles who were staying at a resort in the canyon, which Jared's father owned and operated, decided to go on a hike. 3-year-old Jared and his 6-year-old sister want to go with the group, and their dad thinks, oh, they're just going on a hike on my property, that's fine. They don't. They drive up around about 18 kilometers sort of thing to a trailhead, and they begin a trail. And the group ends up strung out along the trail with the 2 children ahead of the group, and no one really taking responsibility for the kids.
Oh, the 90s.
There's just this one woman who's kind of watching them.
Okay.
And she realizes that she hasn't seen him ahead of her for a little bit, and he's just fucking gone.
Oh, God.
So 8 days with a minimum of 65 people from search and rescue groups like canine units, media, etc. Perform searches. And his shoe is the only thing that's found 4 years later by the 2 hikers. It's literally like 170 meters up the side of a mountain, directly above where he went missing. So there's like 170 meters between
above
where he was and where he was found, like his shoes found. The authorities go in and have a look in the area, and they find his other shoe, his jacket and pants, and his skull cap and 1 tooth sitting on top of a log.
Oh.
What?
Yeah. So the hikers basically are like, there's no fucking way a 3-year-old got up here on their own. Like, we barely could do this shit. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The searchers are certain they went over that area, and they are certain that canine units signaled at and around that rock field, but they never found any animal hairs, any blood, anything like that on the remains or the clothing. The clothing isn't consistent with an attack. It doesn't have significant tears to the areas that would have been attacked, like the belly, anything like that. The shoes are basically pristine. There's literally like no drag marks. Like, if an animal grabbed him and dragged him, their shoes, if they were still on his feet, would have had drag marks on them, and even if they were dragged off his feet, you would assume that you'd see some sort of markings from where that happened. There's none.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's apparently no significant human decay present on the clothing. So it wasn't on his body. The pants are inside out, like they've been taken off him, and there's no official conclusion as to his death or disappearance, and his father doesn't believe that an animal was the cause of his death.
No.
Holy shit.
Yeah, his dad's on the documentary, and it's fucking sad, man. Okay, so now we're going to go with 24-year-old Stephen Kubacki, who in February of 1977 goes cross-country skiing near Lake Michigan, and he sits down to rest. When he gets up, his own tracks are missing, and he becomes disoriented. He remembers walking through the snow, numb and exhausted, and then he blacks out. He opens his eyes, and it's spring.
What?
What?
He's
What?
lying in a grassy field in the middle of a forest wearing clothes that aren't his. He has a stranger's backpack with running shoes that aren't his and glasses that don't belong to him or are his own prescription.
What the fuck?
Yeah. He stumbles into town. He discovers he's in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, 235 kilometers away from where he had been. Sorry, no, that's wrong. I think it's 235,000 kilometers. He's a long fucking way away. It's like states away from where he had been. He goes home and his family is shocked he's been missing for 14 months. Yeah. When he was reported missing, his skis and poles were found with one set of footprints walking to the water and none leading away, so he was assumed to be dead. And he has never discovered his whereabouts during that time.
Oh, God.
He did live. He went on to get his PhD and has written some books trying to explore what the fuck happened to him. Basically, he's looking at, like, alternate universes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where my mind goes.
Yeah,
Where the fuck did he go?
He's like, what happened to me? But
Like,
it really fucked him up.
Yeah, like he's blinked out of one existence into another and back again, and that's like the only way my mind can fathom it.
Yup.
Is to be like, it's an AU. Like, fuck.
So that one's sort of fucked up. We do have some, this is terrible to say, but some more run-of-the-mill ones. So this is an older one. 1958 in August, 10-year-old Bobby Bizup, who goes to a boys' summer camp at St. Malo. It's a big Christian campground in the Rocky Mountains. Bobby's partially deaf. He wears a hearing aid. He's fishing at a creek just beside the camp, like really close by, when counselor tells him it's time for dinner. Bobby acknowledges him, begins to follow, and the counselor walks off a couple of feet before turning around to check that Bobby is still behind him and he's gone. So they begin searching immediately with like 400 volunteers within 4 days. It's officials from police, National Park Service, there's heaps and heaps of people. A lot of them are well trained for this situation. Finally, a formal search is called off after 9 days, and they find nothing except the bait box and stuff he had with him while he was fishing.
Oh, God.
So next year, 3 camp counselors are walking up the side of the mountain that the camp sits on, and they find a hearing aid, bits of clothing, and some bone fragments, and it is confirmed to belong to Bobby Bizup. He was in a ravine that they had searched 3 times the year before. Downhill following the stream is almost a straight line from where his remains were found. He would have been able to see the camp. There's a giant fucking statue of Jesus on the side as well, of like this mountainous area where the camp is, and the building that the camp is situated around is a really like big old church, and that's massive as well. Like it's kind of hard if you think about where he's found to be like, how the fuck didn't he know where he was?
Yeah.
And it was extremely difficult terrain to walk up to get to where he was found. Then we have 2-year-old Keith Parkins. In 1952, he goes missing in April. He's visiting his grandparents' ranch with his mother in Oregon.
Yeah.
Keith and his older brothers go into the barn to see a new calf, and his mother calls them in for lunch. The older brothers come, Keith doesn't. So the brothers said he went around the barn, he didn't go inside it. So they start searching immediately. 200 people search through the night, and they find his footprints 5 kilometers away. They find him face down in the snow the next day at 7 a.m. 8 kilometers further away from the footprints. 13 kilometers total as the crow flies from where the barn is. And it's not possible to actually walk that distance in 13 kilometers, though. It was more likely he walked 20 kilometers.
Okay.
He's found face down in the snow. His face is scratched, his clothing ripped. His hat and coat are beside him, but he's alive. He's 2 years old and he has no idea how he got there.
Oh.
Oh, he's alive.
Yeah, he
Oh,
lives.
shit.
Yeah, they interview him in the documentary and he's like, I don't know, but this is what I was wearing.
I was 2. Fucking hell.
Oh, wow.
Holy shit.
Exactly. We'll skip a couple of these because they're normal. Let's go with Danny Philippidis.
Mm-hmm.
So 2018, this is a really recent one.
2018.
2018. He's on a ski trip with his friends in New York. They're already getting ready to go back to the lodge for lunch. They've been skiing all day. Danny wants to go down one more time. 2 hours later, he hasn't come down the ski run and he's not answering calls or texts.
Mm.
So they begin the search. A team of 130 people searching for him that day, and it gets bigger and bigger. 6 days later, Danny's wife gets a phone call. It's not a recognised number, but between the static, she can hear Danny's voice. He's really incoherent and confused, and then he hangs up.
Oh.
She calls him back and begs him to call 911. He actually does answer when she calls him back as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He does what she asks him to. He calls 911, describes his surrounding, and he's fine wearing all his ski gear, medically unsound, like he's not well, in a brand new iPhone. He's got a brand new iPhone, and he's had a haircut. He's found at a California airport terminal car rental, 5,000 kilometers away, and he has no idea how he gets there.
Fuck.
He's super emotional and overwhelmed when people tell him how long he's been missing for as well. He says
Oh,
he has
God.
no idea how long he'd been missing.
Oh, it makes me feel sick.
Jesus.
I know, it's horrible.
It actually makes my stomach drop, and now I'm scared that now I know this is a thing that can happen. It's going to happen to me.
Don't
So
go in the woods alone.
ISO is
Yeah.
fucking me up. I'll just stay at home. Fuck
Yeah.
coronavirus.
We can't
I just don't want to
disappear
get.
from here, so that'll be fine.
I don't want to get sucked into an alternate dimension and spat back out again. Fucking hell.
Oh.
It gets weirder.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
More.
Okay, so we have an older man now, Thomas Messick. He's 82 years old.
Oh, bless.
November 2015, he goes missing in northeast New York, a place called Albany.
Yep.
He is a US Army veteran. He's extremely experienced. He's taught hunting. He has one eye after gunpowder blew up in his face, and he's hard of hearing, but he just gets around fine.
He's good
It's
about
very
it,
endearing
yeah.
already.
Yeah, but he goes hunting with a group of 7 people, and they're using walkie-talkies, and basically the technique they use is the older guys sit down, and the younger guys drive the deer towards their dads. So he doesn't really have to do anything.
Nice.
Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
he's just gonna have a good time. They're out
Yeah.
hunting.
He
just
doesn't
has
need
sit
to
there
do
and
anything.
shoot. Exactly.
Yeah.
He's been through it. He's
Yeah.
can relax.
They split up and they drive the deer towards the older men who are sitting. And Thomas, they didn't find anything. Like, there's no deer. So they're just like, well, fuck. And they all gather together at 3 p.m. as they, previously agreed, except Thomas doesn't come. There's no shots. No one shot anything. No one fired off any rounds. So he hasn't gotten hit by accidental gunfire. There's no animals spotted, so, he probably hasn't been gored by something and is lying in the ground. They go searching into the night. A search and rescue is organised with dogs and air search, 100 plus people in a trained search bump line grid, which is basically, this is a search technique where you get the whole area where they're expected to be. Like, you sort of anticipate, okay, well, if he can move this quickly, this, in the time that he's been missing, this is the furthest he could have possibly gone.
Yeah.
And then you go a little bit further and you set up a bunch of string in a grid formation, and then you get everyone to walk, again, like fingertip to fingertip, from one side of the grid, and you bump into the line, and you turn around, and you go back again. And then you move progressively through the grid until you've done the whole fucking area.
Okay.
So, like, very thorough. They're not just sort of like, he's not over here.
Yeah.
They're doing this very rigorously. They don't find shit. They never find a single trace, not a walkie-talkie, not his clothing, not his gun, nothing. And it's not like those things disintegrate. Clothing might, but a gun fucking doesn't. And
No.
there's a walkie-talkie, which he had the whole time and knew how to use. The FBI arrive, and the FBI don't go searching for missing adults without very specific criteria, and this is just an 82-year-old hunter who goes missing.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason for them to be here.
Ooh.
prior to Tom going missing, one of the hunters reported hearing a really loud snapping, like a large trap had gone off.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's pretty bad. There are clusters, like quite a few of these I picked from different areas, but there's a Santa Fe cluster, where basically one of them is a woman who's 75 years old in very good health, goes mushroom picking at a ski resort with her husband. They get separated, thunderstorms disrupt the search. 5 days later, she's found way, way off from the primary search area, lying in a fetal position, naked in 4 to 5 inches of water in a creek. She's face down, but there's no known cause of death.
Oh.
Yeah, so she didn't drown. She has no signs of hypothermia, no physical injuries.
Apart from the paradoxical undressing.
Exactly.
She was just
that's
placed
something I
there.
want to get to as well.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
There's a lot of undressing happening.
yeah.
We like
so
to
this
be
is a
naked in the
thing.
woods. that's
Costume
We
changes.
do.
Costume
But this is actually something that comes
Skyclad.
up a lot, and it's so weird that it comes up a lot because, like, so when you get severe hypothermia, it's not unusual to do this thing called paradoxical undressing, which is where you think that you're actually hot and you take off your
Yes.
clothes. And it can happen with shoes as well, so it's not weird that, like, they found
feet.
boots and stuff like that. Yeah. It actually, in urban areas, a lot of the time people who get hypothermia in urban areas, they're often initially thought to have been sexually assaulted, but it's just they got fucking hot and they took off their clothing.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's horrible.
Probably got sexually
like,
assaulted
the-
by whatever the fuck was in the woods. A Bigfoot. or
Maybe.
something.
Like, yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
I'm so ready to go deeper. Please tell me you've got more.
I have many.
Yes.
I won't go into the really boring ones. I'll still keep picking the ones that are like they're not boring. This is terrible. A person going missing is not boring, but after a while, if I'm just sitting here repeating to you the same things,
Yes.
the names don't mean anything anymore.
The unusual ones is what we
Yeah,
want to hear.
exactly. So I'm trying to pick ones that will get people interested in this because I think when people go missing, a thing that's really important is getting the word out there. Even if it's years later, somebody
Yes.
somewhere hopefully will know something or see something or come across something. And you never know what reunites someone with their loved one or their loved one's remains, or at least just gets closure.
Yes.
So in this Santa Fe area cluster where Audrey went missing, there is also 61-year-old Melvin Nadell. There's actually like 12 or 13 in this cluster, but these are sort of ones that stood out. In 2009, he goes hunting with 2 friends. They arrive like 2 in the afternoon. He had a slight injury from a day or 2 prior, just in his knee from like falling over.
Okay.
He went to a group of trees around about 100 to 150 meters down the trail, and his friends went up the trail together. He made a tree blind that the canines later tracked to, so that's like basically a weird little sort of shelter thing that just hides you from the animals.
Okay.
It's something you do in hunting. I don't know. I don't shoot stuff. He totally disappeared. They call search and rescue, helicopters and dogs. Everything comes out as per usual, as is over and over again what happens in these missing persons cases. And they never discover anything again. No weapons, no possible attack ground where an animal might have got him. Nothing. Similar again is Stanley Vigil, 2017 in November. He's a 54-year-old hunter. He's with a father and a friend looking for some deer, and they're driving down a road looking for deer, and one runs across the road in front of them. So he jumps out and runs after it, and suddenly as he runs away, rain and heavy fog hit. And his father and his friend lose him in the woods, trying to run after him as he runs after this deer.
Oh, God.
Professional trackers, dogs, helicopters, nothing shows up. 5 months later, an off-duty police officer finds a body while fishing. There are skull injuries and 2 broken ribs, but no confirmed cause of death. He's 9 miles from the point of separation over extremely difficult terrain.
I mean, after all, you just fucking give up, the deer and just go back.
Yeah.
Right.
Turn around.
But the fog, the spooky fog.
The spooky fog, those weather events we talked about.
Yeah, the weather is really fucking me up with how it just seems to sweep in.
Yeah, like obviously these are... Weather around mountainous terrains and shit is usually foggy and gross.
Yes.
Because, like, mountains, especially in their plains and things like that, actually like draw clouds and create them a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still weird how it just happens so suddenly, so quickly, and then it's only ever when you really don't want it to. And often, a lot of the time that they pointed out, it's unseasonable weather.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, this one's a bit bizarre, and the next one's quite bizarre as well.
Yes.
2014, a medical doctor, not just a regular doctor,
Okay.
Medicinal one.
A medicinal.
medicinal doctor. So he's someone who knows a bit about when you get hurt, what to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
James McGrogan, he goes on a snowboarding trip. He has a cell phone and GPS with him, and his friends lose sight of him along the trail and don't see him again along it. They don't find any tracks veering off the trail, neither them or the search team, and his body is discovered 5 days later in a contorted position with his skull crushed.
Contorted.
Ah, contorted.
Yeah, it's particularly mangled apparently.
Mangled.
His positioning. He's 4.5 miles. I forgot to convert that to kilometers. Sorry. So it's around at 10 kilometers, I think. As the crow flies, minimum walking of 14 miles up mountains. So it's not just like across a street
Yeah.
at 14 miles long.
And he was snowboarding at the time, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually doing a thing that's like split snowboarding, which is where you snowshoe and snowboard as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so you can like do it as a trip.
Okay.
But yeah, they find him at the bottom of a frozen waterfall. The search party had gone over that exact area multiple times. He's wearing no boots or gloves, and they are never located. His cell phone and GPS is still working and have signal, and he never called for help.
Oh.
Yeah. Then we have Dennis Martin, who's a 6-year-old in the Smoky Mountains in 1969. He has his brother, grandfather, and father with him, camping with a man. They're camping, and then a man with his own children at the campground approaches Dennis's father and asks if their kids want to play together.
Yeah.
Okay.
They agree, and the kids are playing hide and seek. Dennis's father is literally watching them do this. He watches Dennis run over to a tree at the clearing edge and hide behind it, and then he doesn't see him again.
Oh
The
my
kids, I know, exactly. The kids all jump out and reveal themselves, but Dennis doesn't.
Oh.
He checks behind the tree. He reckons he's been looking at this tree the entire time because he can see that's where his kid went.
Fair.
And he's playing with kids he doesn't know. And he goes and looks behind it and he's not there. He runs to the tree and he's not behind it. They spend the whole night looking for him with park rangers, with Green Berets, which is like a specialized group from some part of the military. I don't really know. I should have Googled that.
The forest sector.
Yeah. In 6 weeks, they discover 1 shoe, 1 sock, and no body.
Oh.
The weird part of this one is that another family camping the same weekend nearby reported hearing a scream and seeing a bear or wild, hairy mountain man hiding behind trees and carrying something on its shoulder. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, Sasquatch. The guardian of the forest.
So this is the point where it starts to get a bit weird. So in the second documentary, which is called The Hunted, using 411, both of them are very well put together, and I would recommend watching them genuinely, especially if you're bored. You can rent them online for quite cheap. I'll give you more info at the end.
Yep.
But at the end of the second documentary, he goes with a bunch of dudes who are quite old, like over into the mountains. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my notes about it, 'cause there's a lot going on here.
There's a lot of notes.
There's a lot of notes. Basically, there's another cluster of disappearances in like the 1950s around this 6,000 foot elevation just outside of Yosemite. It's called the Sierra Camp in the documentary, and basically these 4 old guys who've been going there since the 50s had like a secret camp there, and they wouldn't actually reveal where it was. And when they took the documentary team there, they had to promise not to reveal where it was. It's extremely remote. Like, it takes them days to get there. They have to go with horses to get all their shit there.
Oh god, why would you bother?
I know, exactly. I'm like, you're near Yosemite. Everything's pretty.
Yeah, this little homebody's like, no, it's too far.
Exactly. No, I'm not fucking going out there.
Not
I get
now.
nervous camping on someone's property. I'm like, what's out here?
Certainly not going camping now after all this has happened.
Exactly.
Continue.
Well, have you heard of, hey, I'll be interested if you haven't. Have you heard of samurai chatter?
No.
No.
What is that?
Fuck.
What does
How
it
do you
mean?
not know? Oh, you'll love this.
I mean,
So it's the term that they use for a particular type of audio recorded that is associated with Bigfoot sightings.
oh.
Because it sounds weirdly like a mix between like big apes and unintelligible human speech that kind of sounds like the vocal patterns of Japanese or some dialects from China and things like that. So it's kind of insensitive to call it that, but they call it samurai chatter.
Fuck.
My jaw is on the floor.
Is Totoro killing people?
Maybe.
Well,
this is Bigfoot, different things.
the child does go missing for a very long time, and then she does show up again.
Maybe she actually is a troll and he ate the real little girl.
Is Totoro secretly a 411
Yup.
retelling? Holy shit.
So, in the documentary, you get to hear some of the samurai chatter that these old dudes had filmed in the 50s, 60s, and 70s with their recorders, because they started hearing it in this location and began bringing video equipment to try and capture it.
Oh, I keep looking over my shoulder, but my door's closed and I'm really spooked. Oh my god, that's so cool!
It's fucking wild. So it gets quite silly, like, some of the credibility of this missing 411 pattern and clusters loses a bit of credibility when you start to bring in Bigfoot, but it's still creepy as fuck.
Oh yeah, I'm just having flashbacks now to Lacey sending me video collections of scary forest sounds at like 3 a.m. and me watching them at 3 a.m. and being very spooked.
Very spooky.
Yeah.
The documentary tries to be like, yeah, look, there's the sounds that we got experts to look at were like, oh, it's made by a creature that must be bigger than a human, at least 8 foot tall, to produce that kind of vocalization.
Yeah.
And it's no known, like, qualities with animals that we know of and all this sort of stuff. And it's cool, but at the same time, you're kind of like, alright, but this was a documentary about missing kids, and now you're telling me about Bigfoot, and I wasn't prepared, so I feel weird about it.
Yeah, it's broken the immersion. Your status has dropped here, mate. Yeah.
It's still very cool. It's, again, a well-done documentary, and there's one that I want to watch that kept getting recommended to me when I was trying to find it, called Skinwalker Ranch, which sounds fucking sick.
Oh, Skinwalker Ranch.
I know. But anyway, so there's a lot of disappearances that I have on a list here. I'm gonna skip over the rest because there's hundreds. There's hundreds. So 1,200 cases fit Paulides' missing 411 profile that he has found, and that's just in North America. He's now started expanding it to international places, and again, lots more fit.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
He's written 8 books and has these 2 documentaries on it. They're all under the missing 411 category. You can find them quite easily. Some interesting details that kept popping up throughout all these notes and stuff were, in the last 100 years in Canada and the USA, there's only been 14 fatal mountain lion attacks. There's been, exactly.
Yeah.
It's wild. There's been slightly more bear attacks that have been fatal, but there's always, in these cases, and there's less wolf attacks, all in these cases, there are remnants. There's remains left behind, there's signs that it happened. There's never just a person completely missing and gone, and there's nothing to show for it. The National Park Service confirmed that they do not have a list of missing people within their parks across the USA, at all.
They probably should do that.
Exactly. Paulides has tried to get one for years and years from them, and they've basically come back and been like, it will cost us $1.4 million to do that. So
then do it.
There's a petition to compile it, and there's the Can-Am Missing Project that now is a thing.
Yeah.
It is a volunteer one, as far as I can tell. They do have a couple of podcasts that you can find on YouTube, where they interview Paulides and look into this sort of thing. It's pretty interesting. But basically, yeah, like we were talking about earlier, obviously a lot of these details are kind of like paradoxical undressing could explain the clothing thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so, you know, if someone took off their clothes and then got attacked by something, maybe the clothing wouldn't be ripped, etc.
Yeah.
But being clean for like years after
Yes.
some of those being found, that doesn't add up. Doesn't
The
add up.
dude that just like fucking woke up and it was spring and was like, no.
Oh, that's fucked.
And the dude who woke up with a haircut at an airport
Yeah,
with
what
a
the
new
fuck?
phone.
What the fuck? I know, exactly. So I wanted to, at the end here, because I didn't really use Wikipedia, but
Okay.
when I did use Wikipedia, it had these details on there, and I thought it was really funny. I found these first, and then I went back and looked at everything else. But, so Paulides has self-published, besides the Missing 411 series, 2 Bigfoot books. So he's really into Bigfoot.
He likes
the
Bigfoot.
He loves it. He never, when he was first doing the Missing 411 a couple of years ago, which is when I first found out about it, he never, like, specifically turned around and was like, okay, so I think it's Bigfoot. He was just like, look at all this interesting shit. Why is it happening? And everyone was like, why? Now he started to talk about Bigfoot a bit more. We're like, oh, okay, you're one of those, right?
Okay.
He published a paper in 2013 where he claimed that Bigfoot was real. And he had documented an analysis of 111 samples of hyposynthesized Bigfoot DNA, and it was written by 11 different authors. A press released prior to the peer review that was supposed to happen for their paper claimed that the DNA sequencing study confirmed the existence of a hominin hybrid crossbred between modern humans and an unknown primate. But the paper was analysed later by Sharon Hill of Doubtful News and the Committee for the Skeptical Inquiry, and a couple of other people as well. It's not just this chick. But she was like, there's not a lot going on here that makes sense. The few experienced geneticists who viewed the paper had a very low opinion of it. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Kyle Paulides, he's a data scientist, and he hosts a podcast called Data Skeptic. I didn't get a chance to check it out, but I do want to. He documented his analysis of Paulides' claim about missing 411 specifically, and presented his analysis in 2017. He concluded that all these unusual disappearances represent nothing unusual at all. Instead, they're explained by non-mysterious circumstances, like falling into sudden health crises, being alone, being immobilized, drowning, bears and other animal attacks, environmental exposure, deliberate disappearance.
Yeah.
After analysing all the missing persons data, he concluded that these cases are not outside the frequency that one would expect, or that they have anything unexplainable about them.
But they do.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I genuinely think you should look into it, because it's fucking wild how many of these disappearances are so similar, and how many there are, full stop. Like, I started to get into the ones in Australia and I noped out because I was too scared.
Oh, dude, I just know as soon as we hang up this call, I will be on the computer until like 3 a.m. tonight looking it up, and I'm going to scare myself shitless, because I live not too far from many walking trails, national parks, and the like.
I have something supplementary for you and anyone else who would like to go further.
Yes.
I originally found out about Missing 411 because of a no sleep series on Reddit called I'm a Search and Rescue Officer for the US Forest Service and I have some stories to tell. The user is Search and Rescue Woods, all one word, Search and Rescue Woods.
Yeah.
I would recommend. It is such a good series from No Sleep, before No Sleep started to go to shit. It's amazing. It's really, really interesting. It's so matter of fact that it feels really real. It's not the kind of story you tend to get on No Sleep nowadays. It's just someone like, hey, this is what I found that happened to me. And then over
Yeah.
the course of the series, they start to be like, other people have realised I'm compiling these stories and they've started to tell me theirs, so this is what I've got for you now.
Ooh.
The Stairs in the Woods, if you've
yes.
ever heard, that's from this.
Oh, shit!
Yeah,
Because there's a whole, like, very niche subculture around stairs in the woods now.
Yep. This
When
is
it
from,
comes
like,
to
4
like
years ago.
when it comes to like spooky shit on Reddit, there's like a whole niche little pocket of just stairs in the woods stories.
It's so spooky.
It's so fucking scary.
I don't like the stairs in the woods. But yeah, so that's Missing 411 in a very brief nutshell. I tried to make sure I got everything that was, you know, pretty interesting at the face value, but there's so much more that you can find. Like, I've got 4 more pages of cases that I skipped over here just in very broad strokes.
Stay tuned, 411 part 2 coming soon.
It's very interesting. It's really cool. It's really weird. The documentaries are well worth your time. They're about an hour and a half each. You can find, the first one's really hard to find. I ended up finding that one. God, where did I find it? Microsoft Films and TV, which is an app that you can get for free if you've got Windows. And basically, I think I spent like $4 and I downloaded it on there, and it was worth my $4.
Cool.
And then the Missing 411, The Hunted, which is specifically about hunters that have gone missing, and that does include the Bigfoot samurai chattering, if you wanted to watch that.
Okay.
That's super, super easy to get. That's just on YouTube, and that's about $4 again, I think. Maybe slightly more. Would recommend, yeah. They're very cool. They're very well put together docos, even if Paulides turns out to be a bit of a weirdo, but I'm into it. I like his weirdness. I also used top10s.net, top 10s with a Z.
Yes.
For a brief overview of some of their favourite Missing 411 cases. I used the Can-Am Missing Project interview, which is available on YouTube. I went on the Can-Am Missing Project website, which deals a lot with the Missing 411. Very briefly used Wikipedia, and yeah, that was my sources.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Something to distract me from the quietness of my empty house. Probably not the best thing to use, but I'm gonna use it. Fuck.
No, now you can be terrified and alone.
Yeah.
Oh, hooray.
Yay.
Excellent stories,
Yeah,
Hags.
no, they were good ones.
Excellent.
They were very, very good.
Well done, team. I liked
Well
them all.
done.
Had a
Dude.
good time.
I loved it. Amazing. Thank you for listening, folks. If you would like, you can check out weird-sisterspodcast.com for all links to our socials. Leave us a like and a review on Apple Podcasts if you have time. We love to hear from you. And suggest us a topic if you've got one. We spend a lot of time on the internet looking at stupid shit, but we can't look at all of it.
No, we need direction.
Yeah, there's always going to be something cool that we miss. So if you know something weird you want us to cover, please let us know. You can contact us through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our email is weirdsistorspodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to us. Review us. We're on Apple Podcasts. We have a Facebook group. Review us on there. Give us reviews. We want validation.
Please, we need validation. We need something a crumb of serotonin in this trying time from you, please.
We may not deserve it, but we want it.
We are brats, please.
Please, sir. Well,
Alright.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Until
day.
next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.